The attack was set for Wednesday, not a war, not an invasion, just a single surgical strike night. One building, one man at the center of it all, the presidential palace at Ouagadougou. According to the Burkina government, foresaw overthrow had been scheduled and followed with a military position. The plan wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy. It was designed to be quick, brutal, and final. Take the palace, silent resistance, and declare new leadership. Before dawn, but they made this plot a different from every failed coup. Before wasn't just a planning. This wasn't about gaining power. It was about ending the order. Security Minister Mohamed Moussana called it a mission to set and bring total chaos. That was a tactical goal. Those were his poetic words. Because chaos, when used correctly, does something that will invite outsiders in. The conspirators didn't want to rule the country. They wanted to make it ungovernable. The objective, according to intercepting intelligence, was to drag the country into such deep instability that for one, interceptions would be inevitable, the kind with peacekeeper, the kind of flags that don't belong to Burkina Faso, the kind that replaces local authority with international management. The plotters wanted to put Burkina Faso under supervision of international organizations. They weren't planning a coup, they were engineering a collapse. But who are these people? The operation wasn't pulled together by a gang of dissidents hiding in forest. It wasn't staged in a garage or rebel base. It came from men in military, really men with real ranks. Some were still on government payroll, others had vanished in exile, but still helps in networks influence and knowledge of state protocol. They didn't break into different doors. They knew the layout. They had access. They were the kind of people who would never be questioned when they were working in a palace, which is exactly why they were dangerous. The planning had been underway for months, maybe longer, not through backroom meetings or emails. These men knew how to keep things quiet. Orders are passed face to face, not to bond after reading, learn to memorize after reading no mouth. It was a coup made from shadows, and yet it nearly worked. But the failure was an accidental. Something or someone saw it coming. Government insiders said the takedown began with untraceable phone call, anonymous trips from location outside Burkina Faso. From there, intelligence services moved fast, cross-checking travel logs, intercepting suspicious banking activities, and analyzing encrypted chat between military bases and civilians' phones in capital. Too many officers were taking leaves, erasing unencrypted traffic military devices, spiking in ATM withdrawals from accounts linked to all regime loyals. And then it came breakthrough. With less than a week to go, the government acted now with silence, no public warnings, no troop mobilizations. The response was as quiet as the conspiracy itself. They moved through the ranks like a ghost. Phones were seized, military homes were searched, communications were wide. Some officers were arrested in mid-communication. Still unaware that the operation was over before it began. Sources say the mood in the army turned electric, strong, stable, cracking like live wire. Every commander was suddenly looking over his shoulder. But here is strange part. There was no resistance, no gunfire, no barricades, no defiance. It was as if the plotter knew they had lost the moment. The silence that followed was heavy, too heavy to be called relief, because even coup had failed. The people behind it were still outside there, watching and waiting. This means everything was almost perfect until Captain Ibrahim was moved to secure location. hours before the arrests began. These men had the tip came just the day later. Burkina Faso might be flying different flags. This wasn't just clams greedy for power by few angry men. It was well-coordinated military-traded operation with strategic objectives and geopolitical implications. And the more investigators pull the threads, the more they see connections far beyond the capital and far beyond the country. The blood had barely been fall, but war behind it, that was only the beginning. Now the question is, who was behind all this? Because every conspiracy needs a trigger man, but the real power hides behind the curtain, silent, calculating, and always 2 steps away from the blasts. As Burkina Faso investigators followed the smoke trails left by the failed coup, they began to realize something chilling. The fingerprints didn't just belong to low-ranking soldiers looking for promotion. It was something strange that left everyone wondering. These were men who sit on the same table with the current leadership, who wants to still sing the same national anthem, who want to salute the same man they wanted to destroy. This betrayal wasn't from strangers, it was from the very brothers in arms. Among the first names whispered through the military channels was former Colonel who had disappeared from the radar 2 years ago, discharged quietly after internal disputes. He had resurfaced not in Burkina Faso but 100 miles away, living in quiet exile, hiding, watching, waiting, and a stand-out plotting. His location, Ivory Coast, but he wasn't alone. Reports suggest he was with tight circles of ex-officers, some exiled, others simply detached from duties, who began forming what analysts now calling the Shadow Council. No official titles, no chain of command. They were men who had worn the system like second skin. They knew the codes, the rotations, the blind paths. They understood which commandos could be bought with money, which could be swayed with ideology. And they had one thing most of government enemies didn't know or didn't have: credibility. Credibility buys access. Credibility opens doors. Credibility let you blend in. But infiltration was just phase one. The true genius of the plot was attempt to control the moods of the army, not by force, but through psychological warfare. According to intercepted intelligence reports, these plotters reached out to religious clerics, tribal chiefs, and various community elders, not recruiting fighters, but to just see doubts in government leadership.